Song of the Ravenborn. Korva prowled the jagged mountain crest, her obsidian feathers thrashing in the fierce winds of the stormy sky. A hybrid creature born from a warrior queen and a raven god in a time long past, she was a force to be reckoned with. Her mismatched eyes, one burning crimson and the other an abyss of darkness, scanned the darkened valley below with an instinctual sense of danger. She braced herself for battle, ready to unleash her fury upon any who dared to challenge her kingdom. Whispers had spread like wildfire, carried on the mournful winds that swept through the land. They spoke of a bloodthirsty warlord named Volkar, who left nothing but destruction in his wake. His army marched through villages, leaving smoldering ruins and shattered lives behind them. And with every village he decimated, the crimson tide of his reign stained the land deeper. Korva, a skilled warrior and protector of her people, knew it was her duty to stop Volkar. She was bound by the Raven's law, blood for blood. As darkness descended upon the valley where Volkar's camp sprawled, Korva gracefully descended from above. Her wings, as dark as night, rustled gently in the wind. A scream pierced through the night, raw and desperate. Korva peered into one of the tents and saw Volkar dragging a young woman towards a ritual fire. Rage blazed within her raven heart. This was not honorable warfare but pure barbarity, and Korva would not allow it to continue. With a deafening shriek, Korva pounced from the shadows. Her talons tore through flesh, and her blade sang a symphony of vengeance. One by one, Volkar's men fell before her like wheat before a scythe, their screams drowned out by the song on Korva's lips. But Volkar, fueled by dark magic and consumed by rage, proved to be a formidable opponent. His axe crackled with energy from fallen souls and clashed against Korva's ebony blade with sparks flying like fiery tears. Volkar was strong and vicious, but Korva danced around him, a whirlwind of feathers and fury. In this storm of battle, only one could emerge victorious. Clashes of metal and screams of agony filled the air as Volkar and Korva fought amid the camp engulfed in flames. The stench of burning flesh mixed with the coppery tang of blood. Volkar swung his massive axe with wild abandon, while Korva moved gracefully like a bird riding the wind, deflecting each blow. A sudden shift in the ground beneath her feet loosened stones, causing Korva to stumble. In that moment of vulnerability, Volkar saw an opportunity and thrust a knife into her back. The pain was unbearable, stealing her breath and sending her crashing to the ground. The hilt of the blade protruded from her spine, and she reached out desperately, attempting to pull it out. As she lay on the ground, struggling for breath, Volkar loomed over her with a look of cruel triumph on his face. He sneered at her defiance and declared that death was the fate of those who dared to defy him. Something within Korva stirred. A surge of warmth coursed her body as feathers and shadows rose from the spilled blood around her. She felt herself transforming into something else entirely, a creature of pure vengeance, with glowing eyes and wings that stretched out with a thunderous crack. With a scream that split the night, Korva embraced her new form, the Ravenborn. She was no longer a mere woman or a warrior, but an avenging force. She soared towards Volkar with deadly intent. Volkar's face contorted with fear as he stumbled back, his triumphant expression replaced by terror. With a guttural roar, Korva ascended, her body a monstrosity under the moonlight, her voice a chilling caw. Swiftly, she ripped the knife from her back, the wound healing instantly. Korva descended upon Volkar, her raven claws trained on his neck. He screamed, but his cries were drowned out by the haunting melody on Korva's lips. The melody, filled with sorrow and rage, echoed through the night, a blend of melodic caws and the eerie whispers of the shadows. Its ghostly splendor was accompanied by a choir of ravens, their voices joining in harmony with Korva's as she descended upon her foe. As she stood victorious over Volkar's lifeless body, the sun rose, casting a dim light on the gruesome scene. Korva perched atop a pile of burning remains, the air thick with the scent of death and destruction. As she basked in her victory, whispers reverberated in her mind, growing louder and more insistent, urging her to fully embrace her role as a vessel for the Raven God's power. Despite the tempting darkness surrounding her, Korva still clung to a glimmer of humanity. She had not chosen to fight Volkar because of her god's demands. It was her conscience that drove her to seek vengeance for the innocent lives he had taken. And as she felt the raven god's hunger clawing at her soul, Korva was aware that her biggest threat was not from any external enemies, but from the internal battle within herself. With a gut-wrenching effort, Korva tore herself from the burning pyre, her screams echoing through the dawn. Her body transformed into that of a raven. The weight of her new form weighed heavy on her wings as she took flight in the sky. Below, the valley lay in ruins, charred and smoldering from the god's wrath. Korva refused to dwell on the destruction. She had a mission, a desperate quest to break free from the raven god's control and reclaim her human form. Legend spoke of a hidden sanctuary, nestled within the treacherous eye of the world, where magic flowed freely and whispers of a rebellion against the gods persisted. The journey was treacherous and unforgiving, with icy winds and piercing blizzards. The god's minions, monstrous shadows born from his cruelty, lurked at every turn, testing her determination. Time slipped away as Korva trudged forward, the sun just a dim glimmer in the never-ending storm. Doubt gnawed at her mind, tempting her with promises of an easy end if she just gave in. But in the darkness, she found solace in memories of her human life, her mother's embrace, the bond with her lost sisters, and the laughter of a village long forgotten. The memories were delicate, like flames flickering in the grasp of a raven. But they gave her the determination to keep fighting, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. She believed in a future where gods didn't rule through violence and fear. Korva's body trembled with exhaustion as she trudged through the dense forest, her feet sinking into the damp, loamy earth with each heavy step. The air was thick and humid, causing sweat to trickle down her back and cling to her skin. The trees towered above her like ancient giants, their gnarled branches reaching out like grasping fingers. She heard the rustle of unseen creatures in the underbrush and the distant call of birds. Her tired eyes strained to make out any signs of a path or clearing ahead in the dim light filtering through the dense canopy. But for now, all she could do was push on, her determination driving her forward through the unforgiving terrain, urging her on toward her ultimate goal, the eye of the world. In time, she found herself in a hidden valley, bathed in an eerie twilight that emanated from a pulsating pool of silver in the center, ancient magic humming beneath its surface, beckoning her closer. As she reached out to touch the pool, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Volkar, his body twisted and malformed by the raven god's dark magic, a grotesque mockery of the man he once was. "You won't escape this, Ravenborn," Volkar rasped, his voice a chorus of tormented souls. "This valley, the power, belongs to the god." Fear gripped Korva as the raven within her cowered, urging her to surrender to Volkar and his master. But she remembered the screams of the innocent lives lost, the remains of her loved ones reduced to ashes on funeral pyres, and the faint whispers of hope carried by the howling storm. With a defiant roar that echoed through the valley, Korva charged towards Volkar. Steel clashed against shadow as they fought for dominance. Her sword was no longer wielded in blind vengeance, but with a fierce determination to fight for her soul and carve out a future where mortals could reign without the interference of gods. Her armor bore down on her shoulders, heavy with the weight of responsibility and purpose. Each step she took toward her destiny was a battle cry against fate and the powers that sought to control her. This was no longer just a warrior's quest. It was a woman's journey to defy the whims of divine beings and forge her path towards freedom. The battle raged on, each side drawing strength from their unique source of power. Korva refused to back down, channeling the energy of the storm and tapping into ancient magic. She fought with all her might, unwilling to let darkness prevail over the light. In the dim, fading light of twilight, Korva's fierce battle cry rang out like a clarion call, her sword glinting as it sliced through the air with deadly precision. She charged forward, her movements fluid and swift, determined to take down Volkar with every ounce of strength in her body. The sound of metal colliding reverberated throughout the forest, and with a single decisive blow, she drove her sword into his chest, piercing his heart. As Volkar dissolved into particles of dust, Korva stood before the shimmering silver pool, panting and trembling. She studied her reflection, a fusion of female and raven representing the inner battle she had just endured. As Korva extended her hand toward the water, she suddenly realized that the raven god had not only manipulated Volcar, but also intertwined its dark influence within herself. She felt the transformation taking place, but it was far from complete. The raven's insatiable hunger still lingered within her. This was the ultimate test, not the battle with Volcar, but the internal struggle that raged within. Determined, Korva plunged her hand into the pool. Magic surged against her skin, tempting her with promises of surrender and unparalleled power. She resisted the tempting whispers of the god, astute, refusing to fall for its deceptive tactics. Korva let out a piercing cry that reverberated through the earth itself, and then plunged her head with its dark feathers into the water below. Pain coursed every fiber of her being as the magic ripped apart the darkness within her. She fought against it, screaming and flailing as both woman and raven battled for control. After a final surge of energy, Korva emerged triumphant from the pool. Her humanity intact, she stood tall and proud, no longer under the influence of the raven god's false promises. Although her struggles were ongoing, she remained confident in her decision to turn down the god's offer of escape. Korva spread her wings and took flight, feeling the wind beneath her feathers. No longer controlled by darkness, she was one with the raven within her. A symbiotic partnership between woman and beast. The temptations and ghosts that once whispered in her ear were nothing more than faint echoes. Her mission was evident: to protect the delicate balance between humanity and the environment, and to show that standing up against divine expectations and choosing one's path can lead to a brighter future. The world was desperate for a savior, one who wouldn't surrender to the demands of deities, but one who would rebel against them. With every flap of her midnight black wings, Korva sang out a battle cry, a promise that she would not succumb to the darkness, but instead wield it as a weapon in her fight for a better world. As she vanished into the boundless expanse of sky, Korva's raven's cry continued to echo, a resounding anthem of unwavering determination and resilience. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.